Welcome to episode 12 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. The Menagerie, part 2.
In this week's episode, Spock's court-martial continues, as the tale of Captain Pike's encounter with the Talosians unfolds in front of the panel. With the Forbidden Planet drawing ever closer, Kirk must weigh the future of his career and the life of his friend against his legal responsibilities. But might an unexpected change of perspective alter his decision?
Let me please you.
Yes, you can please me.
Do you fancy pleasing me?
No, Gerry, we're here to please the listeners. That's our remit.
I'm not doing a very good job, I suspect.
Says who?
The listeners.
Zero complaints. Except for that one guy who left a 1-star review and said we were too critical. Not enough reverence.
Really?
Yeah, I'd say we're more irreverent than
Ban him,
reverent.
block him.
I can't do that.
You can, of course you can.
No, you have to welcome a broad church of opinion. I'm sure he'll self-isolate.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Oh, I don't know, but I think we should thank listeners now that we've reached the final episode before we all die of coronavirus.
I've got a touch of a sore throat.
Yeah, well, maybe face the other way.
Nope. If you're going to get it, you may as well get it from me.
Yeah, well, that's what they used to say, isn't it?
This really will date the podcast.
It's
5
fine.
years' time.
We can edit this section out in 5 years' time.
We won't. We could, but we won't.
No, we won't
No.
bother, but yeah.
It'll be like the Y2K.
That was terrible, remember that?
Oh, no, yeah. I'm sure we'll be fine.
I'm sure. No, yeah, the folk that died probably didn't listen to this podcast anyway.
I wonder if I got to see William Shatner.
Well, hopefully you did. He was saying immediately prior to his trip that he was still coming, so...
Yeah, but airlines and venues will have the final say. It's the government.
People are awfully paranoid about this.
Yeah.
Well, you as a sort of health fanatic freak. I don't know what the right word is.
Freak's never the right word, is it?
Rarely.
Enough of this.
Yes. We get sent a meme on Twitter this week that sums up the second part of the Menagerie quite well. It's the episode of Star Trek where everybody sits and watches an episode of Star Trek.
Quite meta.
Yeah. There was a lot more Cage than in part one.
Yeah, there was more to this episode, as you would expect, as the answers are revealed and we find out a little bit more about what's going on. So we've got quite a bit to chat about. Ready to go?
Yes. Before I go, I'm not going to pump the socials again, but...
Never pump the socials.
No. Is that a phrase?
Nope.
That the kids use? Anyway, if you have the opportunity to leave us a review, do that. If not, we'd appreciate even telling your fellow Star Trek fans about us on your Facebook groups or on Twitter or whatever else. That would help us probably just as much, if not more, than a review.
That would be good.
Thanks. Shall we crack on?
That's my line.
Okay.
Crack on.
We don't get a captain's log this week because, as you recall, Kirk was stripped of the captaincy at the tail end of the first part.
He was. Instead, we have a personal log. 3013.1. That's quite new.
Yeah. Well, he's basically doing a recap of part one here, isn't he?
Kirk tells us that he can't believe what's happened over the last 24 hours as we cut to Spock pleading guilty to all the charges put to him by Mendez.
Yes. And then Kirk resumes his log explaining what's happened to Pike in terms of his accident, what Spock has been showing them, and basically the content of the footage that we saw from Talos.
Yeah, they go in a bit more detail. They say that the charges include forcing Pike to go to Talos 4 as Kirk goes on to explain that somehow Spock is able to project images from 13 years ago onto the screen. And this is his only form of answer or defence to the charges. Before we get to that, can I just say that I noticed last week, but it was more evident this week, Pike, to use the vernacular, he's got a real glaikit look about him. He sits there quite gormless, doesn't he?
I don't think he has control of the muscles in his face.
He doesn't, but every time I see him, I think to myself, it's like Mary Poppins. Mouth shut, Michael, all that type of stuff. Don't gawp.
Get a wire put in or something.
Yeah. I want to say, pull yourself together a bit. You know, sit up.
It's a bit harsh for a guy with locked-in syndrome.
I know, can't help it. When I see his face, I want to
Help him.
No, yeah, help him.
The recap continues through to the end of last week's footage with the camp disappearing and the fact that the distress call never existed being discovered and Pike being captured by the large-skulled Talosians.
Indeed. We then have the credits, and after that we're back down to the briefing room court-martial with another voiceover from Kirk explaining that the images from Talos 4 continued to be beamed to them, and Spock again disregards Mendez's warning about heading to the planet and tells Pike that the Keeper has taken over the screens.
Yes, so the Keeper we saw in part 1, you probably put it together a bit later on, that's the one who was basically speaking to Pike in the cells.
Yeah, I'd like to chat about what we're going to call this Keeper just now, because throughout my notes, and I think there's a contradiction, maybe deliberately, in this episode where the Keeper is referred to he and she. Also, I should apologise up front, I'm going to mispronounce Talosian, Talos man, whatever it is, throughout this entire episode, no doubt. And I sometimes also refer to them as the magistrate. I think that someone calls him, her, it, that.
Yeah, we don't know, I don't think, much about gender in Talosians, whether there is one or two or more. We don't get that information, so I don't think there's any way to make an assumption. I know that Vina refers to one of them as he at one point, but the actors are women. Or certainly the actor for the Keepers.
No, someone else in the episode refers to she as well. But it's not that. I don't know what. Are we going to call it a Talosian? We call it a Keeper. Is that better?
Yeah, the Keeper's fine. Yeah, you can stick with that.
Just for noting purposes.
The Talosian, I think I've said sometimes, because it's really the only one that interacts with them.
Yeah, I think that's why I went for the Magistrate, because I could write the Maj.
Yeah.
Which was easier than trying to spell Talosian every time.
Okay, it's got more letters than Talosian.
Maj doesn't. M-A-G actually. Maj.
Okay.
Magistrate.
Yeah. I noticed right from the beginning of this episode that Spock now seems to have assumed control of proceedings of his own trial.
Yes. Well, the rest of them don't have much control anyway. They're not.
But he's more openly in control. Like, he has stood up and said, I'm running the show now.
Mm-hmm. We go back 13 years to the mountain.
Under the mountain.
Mm-hmm. And see that Pike is in a cell behind a glass window that he cannot shatter, even though he tries to.
He tries very hard. The Talosians come in and speak to him telepathically.
I also should mention that I sometimes refer to them as big heads.
Okay.
They've also got a bit of a bum at the back of their head as well.
They do, and they've got a sort of bulgy steroid vein on the side of it.
Or a butt. Or an arse.
Depending what nation's vernacular you prefer.
Yeah. Sorry. On you go.
They speak to him telepathically. They weren't impressed with his initial entry into their atmosphere, were they?
No, they sort of look on in amusement at who they've captured here. And we can hear them communicate. But so can Pike, which is odd. You're not expecting that. You think they're talking to each other.
Yes, and then suddenly he reacts to what they've said. Yeah.
Yeah. And frustrated, he starts to get a little aggressive and threatening. An attitude that is entirely predictable to them.
The specimen is about to boast of his strength, the weaponry of his vessel, and so on. Next, frustrated into a need to display physical prowess, the creature will throw himself against the transparency.
If you're in here, wouldn't you test the strength of these walls, too? There's a way out of any cage, and I'll find it.
Despite its frustration, the creature appears more adaptable than our specimens from other planets. We can soon begin the experiment.
It's not really a cage, is it?
Well, maybe a metaphorical cage.
Perhaps. More of a cell, really.
Whatever you want to call it. It has the same purpose.
It does. But see, a cage... Sorry to go off on one here. But a cage, to me, is not completely sealed.
Okay.
This is sealed.
But a cell might not be completely sealed.
Might not be. But a cage definitely isn't sealed.
Okay.
Anyway. We're back. Now, this is a thing as well. So, I'm trying to keep myself...
Your time periods right?
Yeah, so I've got the old briefing room now, which... Yeah.
We're in the Enterprise of 13 years ago briefing room where Spock, Number 1, Tyler and Dr. Boyce are discussing their options.
Why is she called Number 1? No one else has a number.
Yeah, her name's Una, according to future revelations, but she just gets called Number 1. She's the first officer.
Mm-hmm. But it's just interesting, no one else... That's not a designation, or it's not a nomenclature that
it's
they
more
use.
Of a nickname. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They note that the planet's surface is too barren at this stage to support life, but Boyce has some thoughts on the illusion that they were shown when they arrived.
Yes, he comments on the greatness of the trick, how they saw exactly what they wanted to see, before going on to consider the dangers in this ability. And we've got Lieutenant Tyler, I believe.
Yeah. Jose Tyler.
What does he want to do?
Well, he wants to shoot things, essentially.
Oh, he wants to go and help Pike.
Yeah, this is maybe where Spock got his proclivity for shooting things from. Yeah.
But Spock points out that the intellectual deficit between these different species would cause them to perish in no time at all.
Yeah, they just get tricked into shooting each other, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So they come up with a plan, I think Number 1 approves it, to use the power from the ship to blast their way into the Talosians' lair.
Yeah, it seems reasonable enough, I suppose.
It seems reasonable at this point until you see their second plan later on.
Yeah.
Where they just beam in.
Mm-hmm. Far easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't require a massive phaser. They wanted to use the toy.
Yes, that's it. They want to bring out their toy gun.
So we're down in Talos 4, and whilst remote viewing, one of the big heads communicates with the Keeper that thousands of them are probing Pike's thoughts and found that he has an excellent memory capacity.
That's good for him.
Mm-hmm. I think that comes back towards the end of the episode. It's mentioned again.
Yeah.
The Keeper notes that a recent death struggle.
Yeah, fight to the death, essentially. So he fought to save his life. I think that's what they're talking about here. He was on Rigel 7, and you remember from the previous episode he talked to Boyce about it when he was getting his martini.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what they're talking about here.
It is. And so the Keeper decides to give Pike something else to protect.
He does.
Down in the cell, or the cage, if you insist. While still trying to engineer an escape, Pike is suddenly transported outside and in front of a large palace. Tell me about this.
Well, I think this is an image of Rigel 7.
Is it?
Where he's just been.
Right, okay.
On his previous mission. And Vena's there.
She is.
And Pike very quickly works out that he's not moved anywhere. He's still in the cage or cell.
Yeah, he is quite quick. He's quite intuitive. We should say that Vena's there beckoning him into this palace, saying that they've got food and weapons in there. It's deserted, but they should be okay.
Yeah, I think you would assume, or I think Pike assumes that she's part of the illusion at this stage. And he very quickly comes to the conclusion he hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, but even though he's worked this out, he still follows her into the palace after hearing a roar from, I think she says, or he says it's a Kaler.
Okay.
And then we return to the Enterprise, the court-martial.
Yes, and Spock notes that the immediate realisation by Pike that he hadn't left the cell was particularly brilliant.
Yes, and I think this shows Pike's abilities, attributes. That's why he's a captain.
It does.
But he does note that despite this, the Talosians were able to make him live in any place of any time that they wished, as they controlled his brain. So even though he knows that he's not there, he can't help it.
Yeah, he's reluctant to, as he says, perform for them. But Vena, we're now back on Rigel 7, we should say. Vena warns him that even though he doesn't believe it and he knows it's not real, he can still be harmed in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
So if he gets hurt here, his brain will process it as a real injury.
And at this point, or just before then, I think Pike questions why they decided to use Vena again.
Yes, because he thinks she's part of the illusion. Why is it always the same woman? So that's got a marble rolling for him.
Yeah. In any case, we hear another roar, followed by the appearance of a large warrior-type man with sword and shield that she insists he has to kill like he did before. The roar was confusing to me. it didn't sound, I don't know if it was just bad audio work, but it didn't sound as if it was coming from, because when I saw that, I thought there was an animal
A creature as well, yeah.
in the door and this warrior was going to try and fight that, but no.
It's just him.
Yeah.
Of course, you can see the connection back to what he told Boyce previous week about the swords and the warriors and everything then.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think in the real life scenario, he lost 2 or 3 crewmen to this.
Yeah. So mentally, he'll be a little bit vulnerable here.
Yeah, but he may also have the advantage of knowing the fighting style of the opponent.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, at first he refuses to fight. He's not going to perform for his captors, and he reaffirms that he knows it's all an illusion. But she points out, as you said, that he will still feel and experience what's going on.
Yeah, you don't want to get stabbed in the face, even though you don't believe it's real.
And in any case, the decision is taken out of his hands when the Kaelor spots him, and he's forced to take up arms.
He is a large sword type thing.
How does the fight go?
Pike wins. It looks like he's going to lose, and then he wins. It's a fairly typical television fight in that regard.
And we see what's really driving him here, because the Kaelor attempts to take Vina away.
Yes, so he's trying to protect her, and that's what the Talosians were hinting at previously.
His natural human instinct kicks in.
Once he's fought the killer off, the illusion comes to an end, and back in the cell, Vina gives him a hug.
And tells him that it is over, before he realises that he is back where he started.
Yeah, he's basically done what the Talosians wanted him to do in that scenario. He's interacted with their illusion.
Yeah. This episode reminded me very much, I don't think you've seen it, strangely enough, of Total Recall.
I've not, yeah.
And I'm sure Total Recall took some inspiration, the writers, from this episode. You don't know much about it, do you?
Just what you told me earlier.
Yeah. Implanting false memories so that you thought you'd been somewhere.
Right.
So people were going like on holidays to Hawaii or becoming spies.
Right. There's a brilliant episode of Deep Space Nine that was done in the 90s where a guy is convicted of a crime, spying, I think, and they implant a 30-year prison term in his memory.
Right.
So although he's just still there the same next day, he thinks he's been in prison for 30 years.
Yeah.
And there's consequences of that.
Yeah. I'm not sure, would you accept that? Say if somebody said to you, okay, we'll give you £1 million, $1 million, but you have to have that memory, so you won't actually have served the time, but you think you had. Would it be worth it for him?
I don't know. I mean, that might be quite traumatic. You might end up with all sorts of issues from it.
Yeah. If ever I'm given the opportunity, I will certainly consider it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, where are we? Back at the court-martial.
We are. The screen goes blank.
Pike has his eyes closed and head bowed like a drunk at the end of a night. And Spock explains to Mendez that Talos has stopped the broadcast because what? Why?
Pike's fatigued.
Yeah, so that's another sign of what we come to learn.
Concern, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned.
Awareness.
Alludes to
Okay.
the final answer.
Okay, we'll not spoil it for people who are following along. Yes, well, Spock says that they care about him and they want him back alive.
Oh, I think Kirk says that.
Oh, Kirk, okay.
Yeah. And Spock claims that they want him back alive. Mendez, however, wants to know why, and reminds Spock that he is being court-martialed. And to answer his questions, as you said earlier, Spock's taking the sort of psychological upper hand here.
Yeah, the entire structure of the court-martial appears to have broken down. Spock's now dictating the proceedings.
But he's not to be deterred, and states that watching the images will be more believable than hearing him answer, and therefore they will have to reconvene a little later when Pike has his energy levels back.
Can you imagine someone trying that in a trial? It's like, Judge, you're going to need to wait a couple of hours, let's come back later.
Well, if you're I suppose they do try it all the time, don't they? My client is he's ill, he's not well.
This minor legal matter needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
We come back with another of Kirk's personal logs.
13.2, what does he say?
They are now an hour from Talos 4 and the trial is reconvening.
Yes, but we head back to the cage now, where Pike and Vina...
Well, they're discussing whether she exists.
Yeah, I think she says that she is as real as he wants her to be.
Yeah, she's quite vague and he's trying to work out who or what she is, and he asks some questions about the Talosians as well.
What's that?
Well, he asks her if there's any way that he can stop them from probing his mind, but she calls him a fool, and he just ends the conversation on the basis that she isn't real.
Yeah, and then she tries to get him back in course and offers to please him, as we heard, earlier. An offer he accepts, but he only wants to know about his captors.
That's it. That's right.
Pike reminds me here of Sam from Quantum Leap, in that, as a kid, I used to watch the show, and he would often get himself into situations where...
Romantic situations
where he would be offered pleasure.
Uh-huh.
And he would always say no. Now, I'm sure that's... But as a kid, I used to say, oh, go on, do it. Don't be such a goody two-shoes. Get in there. It's on a plate. She wants to, you want to. No harm done.
Yeah, but there's no... She can't consent. She doesn't know who he is. She's quite right to not go ahead with any of the opportunities.
Don't get me wrong. I know that moral, ethically, he is very right. But sometimes I used to, as a kid, do it. I would do it. But then I was a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah, very different set of morals.
Yeah, I would definitely not do it now if I was transported into someone else's body.
Let's make this clear for any authorities listening.
Yep. If I'm ever in a situation where I'm transported into someone else's body, I would definitely not do it. But the whole thing's it would be unethical anyway. Even not telling her.
Yeah, basically take over someone's life. Yeah.
Yeah, so once you've broke that first boundary, then...
Yeah.
Let's crack on.
We're up on the surface with a giant gun.
Yes.
I think Spock's compensating for something here.
Number one and her team harness the power of the Enterprise through this massive phaser and attempt to blast through the door.
Boyce is quite intuitive here. He says perhaps they were successful and it's being hidden from them.
Yeah, because we should say that even after the use of full power and a spectrum of light effects, they have to disengage without putting a mark on it.
Yeah, or so it seems.
And as you say, Boyce's comment seems to... It looks as if it's stirring something in number one. The camera focuses on her.
Yeah, she's thinking this through. She's quite a smart cookie.
Back down to the cage. Now, dressed in a... We see for the first time, maybe she was wearing this earlier, but dressed in a rather alluring get-up, Vina continues to try and engage with Pike and suggests that he ask her some questions.
How far can they control my mind?
If I tell you, then will you pick some dream you've had and let me live it with you?
Perhaps.
They can't actually make you do anything you don't want to.
But they try to trick me with their illusions.
And they can punish you when you're not cooperative. You'll find out about that.
Did they ever live on the surface of this planet? Why did they go underground?
War. Thousands of centuries ago.
That's why it's so barren up there?
The planet's only now becoming able to support life again.
So the Talosians who came underground found life limited here, and they concentrated on developing their mental power.
But they found it's a trap. Like a narcotic. Because when dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating. You even forget how to repair the machines left behind by your ancestors. You just sit, living and reliving other lives left behind in the thought record.
Or sit probing the minds of zoo specimens like me.
You're better than a theater to them. They create an illusion for you. They watch you react, feel your emotions. They have a whole collection of specimens, descendants of life brought back long ago from all over this part of the galaxy.
Which means they had to have more than one of each animal.
Please.
They'll need a pair of humans, too. Where do they intend to get the Earth Woman?
You said that if I answered your questions...
But that was a bargain with something that didn't exist. You said you weren't real, remember?
I thought what she mentioned during the clip there was quite relevant today. It talks about how you're not living your own lives, but there's a sort of augmented virtual reality type. Yeah. And it's like social media these days, isn't it, where people are more interested in the sort of virtual digital world as opposed to living their own lives. And it's all about taking a picture of something and sharing it rather than just appreciating.
Yeah, or people who go on YouTube to watch other people playing computer games.
Yeah, like my kids.
Yeah, mine as well. Yeah, I don't get it. We're probably old.
Yeah.
That's what I do get it in a sense. You just want to see how the game goes without the effort of having to beat it.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah. To be fair, they're watching old school Mario that I used to play, so sometimes I do watch for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. My boy watches people playing Minecraft. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
It's probably evil. People
Still fun.
radicalising him.
Call that music.
Pike's a little bit two-faced here.
In what way?
He enters into this agreement to get the information and then reneges on his end of the deal.
What's his end of the deal?
To live in a fantasy world with her.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, you're not real. That guy wasn't a real deal. You can't exist.
Yeah, but the point is that he's being held there against his wishes. He doesn't have to abide by any. He's not obliged to.
No, it doesn't have to be gallant.
No. At the end of the clip, the keeper enters and Vina goes on to insist that she is as real as he is human and compares him to who?
Adam from that Bible.
That Bible, yeah. Mm-hmm. And who else?
Well, presumably herself to Eve.
Yeah. But she stops suddenly in anguish before pleading not to be punished and claiming she will die before vanishing in front of him.
Does she vanish, or does he just not see her?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as he turns to see the keeper exit, we return to the court-martial.
Yes, where Mendes and Kirk are asking whether Pike was captured as breeding stock to create a race of human slaves for the Talosians.
Yeah, but Spock, intriguingly, says it's much more than that before we go back 13 years again.
Pike gets a protein shake.
Yes, he is trying to escape from the cage when he finds a vial, which the keeper informs him, by talking this time, not by thinking, that contains, as you rightly said, a nourishing protein complex again. Didn't realise that in 2020 that would be all the rage.
We all want these nourishing protein complexes.
Yeah.
Instead of meals.
And I would like this as well, because half the time they're not that satisfying or tasty, but in this case,
you can make it whatever you want.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Can you imagine a really healthy meal that you could make into a Mars bar?
Well, I've never had one of these, but you get protein Mars bars now.
You do, yeah.
I don't imagine that they're any healthier than a regular Mars bar.
They're not at all. I mean, they're just higher in protein.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah, they might be lower in carbs.
But you're not going to come off a workout and eat a protein Mars bar, are you?
Yeah, you would, yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Does that not undermine the point of going for your workout?
No.
No.
I mean, I've not actually specifically had a protein Mars bar, but you'd have a protein bar or protein shake, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You'd blend the Mars bar into a nice protein milkshake.
No, you wouldn't. You would just eat it.
Or make it into a chocolate sauce, have it with ice cream.
Carb killers. Everyone eats them. I eat them. They're nice. They taste like
I've been given
sweets.
one. I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, but you're comparing it to a normal Mars bar.
Yeah.
When you compare it to some of the old school protein bars.
Yeah, you compare it to cardboard, yeah.
Yeah.
It's much better.
Anyway, tangents.
Yeah, okay. Pike gets a brief example of punishment for wrong thinking and makes a very keen observation.
Yeah, so why does he get... What's the wrong thinking?
Well, he's talking about not taking this protein shake.
Yeah, he says to the keeper, I'll just starve myself.
Yeah.
I'll die rather than do what you want. But the keeper shows that probably there's a fate worse than death.
Yeah, he suffers a bit of pain, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's in a fiery hell by the looks of it.
Well, he perceives it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Which is quite unfortunate when you consider what happens to him.
Yeah. Anyhow, he notes thereafter that they're obviously not able just to make him hungry, so that he wants the shake.
Yeah,
so that's quite smart, isn't it?
Yeah, he's finding holes and weaknesses.
Yeah, what they can and what they can't do to him.
Uh-huh.
He then surprises the keeper by launching himself at the sort of transparency, as they call it.
Yeah, this is after he reluctantly drinks the shake.
Yeah, so remember the first time he did that, they were like, oh, this is so predictable. But this time they're a bit more surprised, aren't they?
They are, and he wonders if they can read minds why they didn't know that this was going to happen.
Yes, he's intrigued by this reaction, and the keeper then tries to change the subject.
Well, he has a more unnerving promise. If he continues to disobey, there are more unpleasant things deeper in his mind that will be used as torture. Yeah, so I think it was this, sorry, I went back a bit there, so I think it was this threat that encouraged him to take the drink, and then where are we?
We are at his observation that they can't make him hungry, and then the keeper trying to change the subject by talking about Vina, after having been surprised by the charge.
It's not just that he's worked out that they can't read his mind. He understands why they can't.
It's to do with basic emotions, isn't it?
Well, hate, yes, primitive emotions. They're so sophisticated that
They can't handle this. It's like almost white noise that blocks out what they're trying to do.
and as you said, the keeper, I think, because he's getting quite close to the truth, decides to change the subject and agrees to talk about the girl who has been made attractive to him, and is happy to admit it is to keep the species alive.
Yeah, she survived the Columbia crash 18 years earlier, and they fixed her and they found her interesting, so they want to find a mate for her.
Yeah, and Pike goes on to extrapolate that their intentions are to build a whole community of humans, and then acts in a very human-like manner by saying that he is not the one cooperating, so why punish Vina? He's showing compassion here.
Yeah, he's the one that's not cooperating, that's right. And the keeper disputes his suggestion that they just want to perpetuate the species as well, doesn't he, she?
Don't know, does he?
Yeah, they say they want their specimens to be happy.
Yeah.
But whether they actually mean that.
But that show of emotion, that show of compassion, I think it pleases the keeper, who walks off with a smile at a job well done in this experiment. So he's placed this attractive female into his company so that they can watch how he changes and how his emotions can be manipulated by her. So the fact that he suggests that she shouldn't be punished means that the experiment is working. They're seeing the results.
That's right.
This is interesting. Where do we head off to?
A glade,
yeah, the countryside, a park, I don't know, somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, he's experiencing a sort of romantic picnic type thing that you would have had maybe in the 60s.
Yeah, he's dressed in a cowboy denim and is joined by a couple of horses and Vina, who appears to be in a relationship with him. They're acting certainly like they're a couple at this point.
They are, and he's also familiar with the horse.
Yeah, what's the horse's name?
Tango.
Mm-hmm. He goes to get some sugar and realises that he doesn't have any, but...
He does.
Yeah, they've thought of everything.
That's what he says, literally.
Yeah, and there's nice, relaxing music in the background.
But Vina's growing frustrated at his reluctance to play along with the scenario.
Yeah, she's been trying to keep up their pretense, but he is still trying to work out what they want, and she begs him to stop for fear of how they will be punished. But he keeps going, and she reluctantly admits something.
Yeah, she confirms his theory about primitive emotions being a block to the Talosians.
She also admits that she had tried to use this herself, but was unable to keep it up for long enough.
That's right.
Must be quite tiring to constantly have hate inside you and rage. It'd be very stressful.
It would be. She talks about how he has been brought here as someone who would be attractive to her, and he admits that he is attracted to her as well.
Mm-hmm. She also admits that she was won over by them, and effectively they now own her.
For whatever that means. The scenario changes.
In what way?
They're now at an exotic party. I say exotic.
Well, after all, sex party. I mean, it's the start of an orgy, isn't it? A Roman, Arabian...
Certainly it's meant to be Arabian style, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's got the feel of a sort of a Roman orgy.
Yeah. You've certainly got the leering men next to Pike giving him advice.
Yeah, and we have Vina belly dancing now as the Green Orion slave girl.
You a fan of the old belly dancing?
No, not at all.
Me neither. I never got it.
One time I went to an Egyptian restaurant, and it was quite early. I think it was a pre-theatre, and it was this Egyptian theme, just in the south side of Glasgow. And I was trying to eat my dinner with the wife, and we're interrupted halfway through by a middle-aged belly dancer shuffling her stuff at us. I was thinking, that's not in any way arousing, and in any case, I'm trying to eat my rice and lamb, whatever it was, with the wife. I don't want to be aroused at this point. Go away. But you have to go, oh yeah, very good, yeah, excellent, excellent. She shakes her gut. Anyway, so yeah, no, I'm not a fan of belly dancing. I don't think it's just one step away from the old, what do you call it? What's the one with the strippers who don't want to strip? They pretend it's a higher class type thing. The big girls do it.
I don't know what you're talking about. Pole dancing?
No, like Dita Von Teese and all that. They try to make it classy.
Burlesque.
Yeah. All nonsense as well. This is classy stripping. Away you go. It's not. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if folk want to do it as a fitness thing, fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the audience.
No. I want old school strippers.
Do you? Is that your preference?
Well, if I was going to go and watch someone jiggle in front of me, yeah, I don't want this. Oh, aren't we sophisticated burlesque? No.
Anyway, back in the hearing room, Kirk and Mendez take a minute to get excited about Vina as an Orion girl.
Yeah, but he also notes that apparently they're quite vicious.
Yes, but they're attractive because of that, apparently.
And we cut and fade back to Kirk with a voiceover recapping what the Talosians are up to and the tactic involving Vina as we return to Pike and his desires.
Yeah, Kirk notes that Pike is beginning to weaken at this stage.
You can see that, yeah, he's clearly trying to restrain himself. In this shot, he reminded me of Adam Klaus from Jonathan Creek. I think maybe the dress, the look of it in his face.
Not the original Adam Klaus.
No, the second one.
Yes.
Not Anthony Head.
No.
I mean, if you're interested in Jonathan Creek, it's a fabulous show, and there might be some guys that have done a podcast on that.
Well, it's worth looking for that anyway.
I'm sure if you search Jonathan Creek podcast, you'd come across it.
Yeah, go do that if you like that, but later. Pike is pushed.
Encouraged.
Questioned, I might say. He's being asked about whether this party is worth whatever he had to give up.
Yeah, I think they say that you should be okay to give up your soul.
Yeah,
if you can get whatever you want, really.
Almost snaps him back a little bit, doesn't it, from the weakened state that Kirk referred to.
Yeah, so a resolute Pike is able to fight these urges and storms off into a torch-lit mountain cave to the obvious disappointment of Vina.
She follows him.
She does, and she's clearly there for just one reason.
Well, we know that because they've been discussing it openly for the last...
Yeah, but we're getting to the stage now, she's basically saying, right here, right now, let's get it done.
She's just trying to find what it is that's going to trigger that in him.
I'm watching it thinking, just do it.
Same as when you were 14?
Yeah. But I'm thinking to myself, if you do it, that's not like a contract. It's not like if you do it, then you can just do it and then say, yeah, I still want to get out of here. If everyone's willing.
Up on the old Enterprise, they're in the transporter room. They've got a new plan.
They are. Number one tells Spock and others that they're attempting to beam down inside the Talosian community. And Spock boosts morale by mentioning that if everything is an illusion, they could possibly end up dead inside a solid rock.
Yeah, beaming themselves into the middle of a mountain.
I remember asking you about this a few episodes ago.
You would just be dead.
Yeah. So they're not entirely sure. Well, they can beam down, but they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be aware that you'd beamed into a mountain. I think you would just die.
So they begin the standard transportation procedure, but there is a serious problem as only two of them appear to travel.
Yeah, Spock sums it up quite nicely, I think.
How?
He just yells, "The women!"
Yeah, number one, and human Colt.
Yes.
Back down to the cage. They arrive and interrupt Vina.
Much to her distress.
Yeah, I think she's doing some sort of, it's almost like a mind meld, isn't it?
I don't know what she's doing, but Pike is in some kind of a trance, isn't he?
Yeah, and she shouts that she was almost there and wanted to finish.
Sure. I'm surprised you haven't got that as a clip.
And she also says that Pike doesn't need them. But again, this is something that sort of snaps him back to reality.
Yeah, he grabs one of the, I think, is it Colt's phaser? Or is it
both of them?
Both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They appear to be inoperative.
Yes, they were fully charged, but they seem now to have lost that.
Pike is filling his mind here with hate so he can plan without the Talosians knowing what he's up to.
Yeah, but also we find that the communicator doesn't work either.
No.
Can't get a signal. We know how that feels. Certainly inside a cave.
You wouldn't expect to get a signal inside a cave.
So yeah, he fills his mind with this hate. I think Vina is doubtful he can sustain it long enough.
Very sceptical, yes. And Colt sticks up for Pike, despite having no clue of what's been going on.
Yeah, but she doesn't understand when Vina tells her that Pike has already selected her. Vina, that is.
Yes, she feels that that stage has been reached.
Mm-hmm. And then I think Vina has a go at number one as well.
Calls her a computer.
Well, saying that breeding with a computer would be more appropriate for Pike than her. But she attempts to fight back.
Yeah, she's got facts.
Yeah, well, she does some maths relating to her age. I mean, what is she suggesting that Vina is too old to have children?
I think so.
but is interrupted by the entering keeper.
It's not fair. I did what you asked.
Since you resist the present specimen, you now have a selection.
I'll break out of this zoo somehow and get to you. Is your blood red like ours? I'm going to find out.
Each of the 2 new specimens has qualities in her favor. The female you call number 1 has the superior mind and would produce highly intelligent children.
All I want to do is get my hands on you. Can you read these thoughts? Images of hate, killing.
The other new arrival has considered you unreachable, but now is realizing this has changed. The factors in her favor are youth and strength, plus unusually strong female drives.
You'll find my thoughts more interesting. Thoughts so primitive you can't understand. Emotions so ugly.
Wrong thinking is punishable. Right thinking will be as quickly rewarded. You will find it an effective combination.
The old carrot and stick, but sorry Ian, we can't let the unusually high drives of Colt go unmentioned.
Well, you know, she's
What?
of a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
She has priorities. She works on a working ship. She's not got access to recreational activities. After the keeper leaves, Pike remains focused on keeping the hate in his
He
mind.
does indeed. We cut back a little bit later, and whilst all are apparently sleeping, the keeper returns and tries to get their weapons via a secret panel.
That's quite lazy. They could just have used an illusion to get them.
But they didn't.
They didn't. They thought they were sleeping. They didn't need to bother.
And the effort is spotted by Pike. Now, was this a trap? Did he put those guns?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's not really asleep, yeah. And that's the plan, that he's obscured by hate.
Okay. So when the keeper sticks their arm through the panel, Pike grabs them and pulls them into the room, holds them down by the neck. They
Yes.
don't look particularly strong.
Not at all strong, because they've been wasting away underground, growing their brains.
Vina still has obviously concerns and feelings for these people because she asks him not to harm.
Yeah, we saw this. She said this earlier on, that they won her over, essentially.
Yeah, she says they're not evil, or they don't mean to be.
Yeah, but countering that, the Talosian threatens to destroy the Enterprise.
But before that, turns itself into a...
Like Beastman from He-Man,
Yes.
very briefly, and Pike is not buying this illusion.
No, so he resorts to what you said there.
Threats of destruction of the Enterprise, and Pike doesn't believe that. He doesn't think the Talosians would kill irrationally.
Yeah, even after Vina has insisted it's not a bluff, an illusion could easily be used to make the crew of the Enterprise press the wrong buttons or do something that would cause the ship to be destroyed. But yeah, he takes a chance. Pike, that is.
It's a Spock-like chance, isn't it?
Yes, he doesn't think they'd kill for no reasons, and he hands the keeper over to number 1.
Yes, he takes the phasers and shoots the perspex/transparency.
It appears to have no effect as before.
But he thinks that's an illusion.
Yes, and he is going to put his theory to the test by pointing and pulling the trigger at the big head.
Yes, and that gets the desired effect.
Yes, the hole in the glass is revealed.
Yes, the illusion drops. And then the pictures stop.
And we go back to the court-martial where Mendez accuses the Talosians of deserting Spock.
Yes, he's had enough of this now. He's ready to bring the trial to a conclusion.
He asks Pike for his verdict at this point, but Spock begs Pike to wait, insisting it's now his chance for a life.
Kirk is particularly distressed by this. He thinks Spock's taking Pike back to be a zoo specimen, and he, following the other two, adds a third guilty vote.
Yes, not quite as quick as the other two, however.
I'm surprised that Pike voted him guilty.
What do we think? Is it a unanimous verdict required, or is it just a majority decision?
Well, they wouldn't have asked Kirk if they didn't need his vote, I wouldn't imagine.
No, you still want input, don't you?
Yeah,
You wouldn't ignore him. You wouldn't say, it's fine, 2 of us have voted. I mean...
Yeah. Well, I reckon maybe for a death penalty case they did a unanimous vote.
Okay. We head up to the bridge.
Yeah, briefly we kind of get a very quick shot of the bridge. Is it the only shot in this episode of the bridge? It's Hansen signalling that they're now at Talos 4 And Spock says their verdict is irrelevant because the Talosians now control the Enterprise.
As they did 13 years ago. He goes on to say that they will now become aware of why he brought them, as we return to Pike, who now has the Keeper outside.
I assume these images are now resuming for Mendez and Kirk and everybody else.
I'd have thought so, yeah.
So Pike and Number One and the rest of the gang reach the surface. And the Talosian notes that their hope all along was to get them there so that Pike and Vina would use the exterior part of the planet to live. So he's achieved nothing. All he's done is delivered what they wanted, in their view. Or at least they're trying to persuade him of that.
Yeah, they say that he can begin his guided life with the female of his choice, but Pike responds that he may start by killing the Keeper. She simply states that it would be his choice, and that in order to start this new civilization, suitable plant life will be provided.
Yeah, very calm.
And Pike then offers a huge self-sacrificing deal.
Yes, he'll stay with Vina if Colt and Number One are allowed to return to the Enterprise and leave.
But Number One isn't letting this happen without a fight. She claims that humans are not meant to be kept as slaves, and sets her phaser to malfunction, which will cause an explosion.
It's quite a bold statement for 1966.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's quite an obvious political statement.
Absolutely, and a good one.
Of course.
The Keeper's visibly shocked by Number One's manoeuvre. They've been outflanked here. She's obviously kept hate in her mind.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so what happens here is that Pike tells the Keeper that there's still time for them to retreat back underground before this explosion happens, and he pushes Vina to go with them.
Yes.
But she says she can't, as if they have one human, they might try again.
Hence why the planet's banned for visitors.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I've got an issue with it.
Okay. Other Talosians, though, arrive in the nick of time.
Yeah, so Pike tells Number One to wait for a moment and disengage the phaser.
The other Talosians have learned much from their many hours of study of humans.
Yes, and I think they communicate this. They do a bit of a data transfer to the Keeper.
Download.
Who seems shocked to discover that as a race, they would rather die than be held as slaves no matter what the conditions. And apparently this has big consequences.
It's disqualifying. They're too volatile.
So they're effectively free to go, and Pike is understandably angry that they've not even been offered an apology after what they've went through. But how does the Keeper respond?
Well, he's or she's very upset because their own race is now condemned to eventual extinction.
Yeah, he was their last hope, and this should be an apology enough. I don't think that's how it works.
No, Pike offers a engagement, exchange of ideas and culture, but I think we saw this in the Baylock episode.
Okay.
Corbomite Manoeuvre, when they exchanged cultures and Bailey went to live with them.
Indeed. That was a...
So it's a bit different here, though, because the Talosians are fearful. They think that their power of illusion would be learned quickly by the humans and used to their detriment.
Yeah. So at this, Number One regains communications with the Enterprise, and Pike is ready to get back to the ship, although Vina insists that she can't join him.
Up in the transporter room, 13 years previously, Spock speaks over the communications to Tyler, who confirms control of the entire ship's systems.
Yes, and some members of the crew materialise.
Colt and then Number One come back to the Enterprise, but no Pike.
Back in Talos 4, he has not left just yet. Perhaps I think maybe in the hope that Vina will join him.
Well, I'm not sure what he's hoping, but I think he maybe feels that there's unresolved business.
But she goes on to demonstrate why it can't be.
Yeah, she reveals her true appearance. The Talosians did find her 18 years ago in the wreckage of the Columbia, and she was a bit mangled, and they didn't know how to put her back together yet, so she's not been fixed up quite right. Although everything works, she says.
Yeah, she's not been well maintained or serviced correctly.
Her face is a bit squished.
Yeah, and she's got a humpback.
And she's much older than she previously appeared.
All in all, not in good shape.
She needs Harry Mudd.
She does. That's who I was thinking of. He could sort her out, yeah. Oh, Mudd would love these Talosians.
Oh, these powers, yes.
Yeah. So she begins to hobble off, and the Keeper states that he had to show Pike what she really looked like in order to convince him of her genuine desire to remain behind.
And Pike seeks assurances that she'll be allowed to remain in that form to her own interpretation or her own
illusion.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fairness, the keeper says, yeah, of course she will, and even more. So they do look after her.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And they've given up on perpetuating their species.
Back to the transporter room. The system restarts, and this time Pike does appear and tells him that Vina will not be joining them, but he understands why.
Yeah, he agrees with her reasons. And up on the bridge of the old Enterprise, Pike commands their departure, and the story concludes, or that part of the story concludes.
It does, but ours doesn't. We go back to the court-martial, where they watch as Pike begins, as we see the hyperdrive away from Talos 4. And when the footage ends, Kirk gets up to speak with Mendes, who promptly vanishes before the Keeper appears on the screen with an explanation.
What you now seem to hear, Captain Kirk, are my thought transmissions. The Commodore was never aboard your vessel. His presence there and in the shuttlecraft was an illusion. Mr. Spock had related to us your strength of will. It was thought the fiction of a court-martial would divert you from too soon regaining control of your vessel. Captain Pike is welcome to spend the rest of his life with us, unfettered by his physical body. The decision is yours and his.
It would be a bit harsh if Kirk said no, if Pike wanted to go.
Yep, rules are rules.
Not allowed to go here, Pike. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit annoyed that Spock decided not to confide in him with his plan, but...
Yeah, I think he's not so much. I think he's saddened that Spock didn't feel he could come to him.
Yeah, okay, so this is... I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't mind having a quick chat about this whole issue, because overall, I really liked these 2 episodes. I thought it was a good story, a good arc, and as the reasoning and the rationale was being revealed bit by bit, it was quite satisfying. But when you look back, I've got an issue, because the way Spock acts, I don't think it was the correct way, or the way that he necessarily had to do it. So why didn't he just go to Mendes or the Starfleet Command, whoever, and explain that this planet, look at the state of Pike. He's someone who's served us, he's very distressed, he's an absolute wreck here, he's got no life whatsoever. But when we were up there, we know the abilities of these folk. They'll take him back. Can we send him up there just to give him the last 20 or 30 years of his life in peace? I don't understand why he would not have asked or explained this first, rather than taking over and creating a mutiny.
The only thing that makes sense to me is that there was a genuine concern that they would be not only refused permission, but actively prevented from taking those steps.
Okay, I can understand if they refuse, but in that case, he's no worse off. He just does what he did anyway.
Once he's raised the question, though, they're going to be increasing security around Pike. They're going to be making sure Spock doesn't have access to systems.
Yeah.
He's going to be probably locked away somewhere.
But also, as well, I thought that when in the first episode, we saw the Talos 4 book, and it says it was signed off by Kirk and Pike, by Spock and Pike, basically saying, don't go there. This is and you've got this. Well, I had watching it thinking this place must be dreadful. There must be real evil in there. No one's allowed to go there. Why would that not explain why no one should go there? I mean, the reason is obviously
the problem is if you explain why, then people think they're smarter than you. Captains down the line or admirals down the line think, we can overrule that. Whereas if you leave it as a blank, they assume the worst.
Maybe, but I'm thinking that planet could be a great retirement planet for people who have...
The Talosians don't want people to come and retire there.
Okay, you could ask them, but I mean, they've got the ability to give people who have been distressed and in pain or whatever reasonable or excellent standards of life.
But you heard the Talosians as well complaining about the possibility of humans learning this power of illusion. You probably end up with a Gary Mitchell situation or a Charlie X situation.
I thought we were going to say Gary Litter situation though.
No.
Good.
Gary Mitchell or Charlie Evans, where you've got this overpowered human and they become a threat. There's no alternative.
Yeah, perhaps. I just think it was overly dramatic, the don't go there with no explanation, when it wasn't such a bad place after all. Because I've been to other planets where there's, and I imagine we get to more in future episodes, that there's more risk and that there's more danger. So this seemed very dramatic for a planet or a situation that wasn't that dramatic, and in fact could be used for good. and was used for good here. But anyway, that's just when you look back, watching it, I didn't have these issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall it was a really good episode. But we've not finished yet. Where are we?
We get a message over communications. Uhura, who doesn't appear in this episode, says they've got a message from Commodore Mendes who says, yeah, no, I'm cool with this.
Basically, so it's fine, bearing in mind Pike's service and his condition. Effectively, Kirk, it's up to you, do what you want.
Yeah, they're suspending General Order 7 on this occasion only.
Yeah, so Kirk asks Pike if, bearing in mind what he's seen now, if he wants to go to Talos 4, how does he respond?
Yes.
I mean, beep.
He says, yes, no. Lucky he doesn't get too excited. They might misinterpret him.
Yeah.
So he says yes. And
Well, no, okay, so yeah, for such a dramatic decision, you might wait a few days or wait even an hour. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I'll come back and ask you again, because what if he just got all excited and pressed the button once and then was really tired?
It's not a button, it's his brainwaves.
Or whatever, but maybe he was so tired that he wanted
He's
to
just had a nap.
doubly sure
That's
that
why you had the nap earlier. so you'd
we're
be fresh
sending
at
you
the
to
end.
live with these big heads. You definitely want to do this? Yeah, I'll ask you again in an hour's time just to make sure. It's like, do you want to do this? Yep, right, get him down. No messing around.
That's it, no more. So Spock is sent off with Pike to do that, and Kirk has one last comment for him.
A bit of a one more thing.
He wants him back
Why?
to discuss his resort to emotionalism.
Now, I wasn't sure if Spock was playing along here and pretending to be annoyed. He says, I wasn't. I acted purely logically. Was that a...
I think it's almost a nod and a wink between them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you could take it either way, but I think Spock and Kirk understand one another.
Yeah, because when he leaves, we do see Kirk with a smile on his face.
Yeah, he knows Spock cares about his friends. You've seen it already previously.
And with them gone, Kirk gets one final message, some more footage being transmitted for him. What does he see?
I think this is what is going to happen rather than what is happening.
Yeah,
given
because
the time.
Pike is literally just outside the door.
But he sees Pike restored to his younger body, and he and a young-looking Vina, hand in hand, starting their life together.
They do. And we have a nice sentiment to end with.
Do we? What's that?
Yeah, the Keeper says that he wishes Kirk as pleasant a reality as Pike's illusion.
That's quite nice.
Yeah. So, not bad people.
No, they're quite friendly after all.
Sort of. I mean,
They're
even
manipulative and tricky.
yeah, and want you to breed. But again, it's not the worst type of situation. We insist that you guys come here and
You're doing Earth by yourself anyway.
yes, with these gorgeous women. Come on, that's such a...
How dare you?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was possibly the best constructed episode, or the pair of episodes that we've had.
I think it's the most sophisticated.
Certainly because it would be hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
To take another episode completely and build it into a two-part thing, even though it was done quickly. I think it was done well, and I think it's probably a classic episode.
I would agree. I can't even remember, did you last week explain why they did this?
Yes.
Okay.
But I can say it again, it was they were behind in their schedule. They had to get
That was
2 extra episodes out ahead of the window that they had, and obviously you can then do 2 with minimal filming.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all in one room, and they did it in less time than they even allocated, which got them back on schedule, which allowed them to finish the season appropriately.
I remember now. Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that that revelation at the end about Mendes not being there at all kind of flipped it from being about Spock to being about Kirk.
Yes.
So the whole reason behind the setup for that was because they were concerned that Kirk was too adept and that he would potentially stop them.
I was half right about Mendes. I knew I didn't trust him. There was something about him.
It wasn't real.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a positive resolution for Pike?
Yes.
Better than living in a box?
Better than sitting in that box, you mean being with Vina? Yeah.
Do you think the ban will be lifted in Talos?
No. I think it will be reinstated, but I think there should be a discussion, some sort of moratorium around it. I think
there should be a discussion with the Talosians.
Yes.
Yeah. We should note that there was no McCoy, Sulu or Scotty in part 2 at all. There was a cutscene with McCoy and Scotty that we didn't get.
Okay, is that trivia you have for us?
Yeah.
Well, let's go on with it then.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
You normally do the cast first.
Yeah, I'm just slipping in little tidbits to tease you before I go into the shot of Pike and Vina running off at the end was filmed when they did the cage. So that's actual footage of Jeffrey Hunter and Susan Oliver.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about people involved. Original air date for this episode, 24th of November 1966. Directing credits, an interesting one For this part, Robert Butler is credited as the director. He directed The Cage, so he wasn't involved in any of the new footage. It was Phil from last week that directed all the new footage, so they just split the credit one episode each rather than giving them both co-directing credits.
Seems fair.
Butler didn't take part in this because he was not happy with the show. After they did the pilot, he described the direction that the show took as too square-jawed and heroic with a pretentious title, and he advised Gene Roddenberry to revise the name of the show, but that wasn't advice that was acted upon. So he is our big Columbo connection this week. He directed Double Shock with Martin Landau.
And Julian Newmar.
And he did the Jack Cassidy episode, Publish or Perish.
Riley Greenleaf.
He's also still alive, and he's 92.
Good on him.
Don't think he's still working.
Oh, well, he deserves his retirement.
So, as at the time of recording. We discussed...
At some point that's going to be...
Yeah, it'll be wrong eventually for all of these people.
For us.
Yeah. We discussed Malachi Throne last week. He played Mendes, but it's worth noting he also does the voice of the Keeper, and did originally in The Cage do the voice of the Keeper. So because he was also then cast as Mendes, the voice that he did for the Keeper had to be retuned to a higher pitch for the Menagerie than it was in the original footage to differentiate between them.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Hunter played Pike.
I assume
in the
he's
archive footage.
Fit and healthy chap. I'm sure he's still going strong.
He died in 1969 at the age of 42 from a cerebral hemorrhage not long after suffering a concussion when an explosion went wrong on the set of his final movie, Cry Chicago. His film career is mostly B-movies. It included roles such as Jesus in King of Kings.
Wait a second, he was in The Searchers, was he not?
I'm literally about to say Martin Pauly in the 1956 John Wayne movie The Searchers.
That's not B-movie.
I said mostly B-movies.
Right, okay.
He declined to return for the second Star Trek pilot to Gene Roddenberry's disappointment. When Roger Moore moved to America, Hunter was one of the first friends that he made, and Moore's son Jeffrey's named after him.
There you go.
Yeah.
I liked, I saw a little bit of trivia about him, and one of the things was just that his handsome was absolute.
Yeah, that was his trademark, absolute good looks.
Yeah. You know, it's not relative to anyone else.
Yeah.
On his own, he's just handsome. Man, it would be hard to argue with that.
Very fair assessment, yes. Certainly at the grand old age of 42 as well. Most people are losing their looks by
A
then.
young man.
Susan Oliver played Vina in all of her different guises, green or pink or whatever else. She had a prolific acting career. She appeared in various shows, including 49 episodes of Peyton Place. She was in Murder, She Wrote, and a TV movie about Amelia Earhart, for which she received an Emmy nomination. And that was an interesting role because it touched on perhaps her greatest passion, which was flying.
Really?
So after a scare when she was on a commercial flight that plummeted 30,000 feet over the Atlantic Ocean only to pull out of the fall in the nick of time, that would be terrifying. 30,000 feet. She learned to fly single-engine planes so she could take control of her own flying.
Oh yeah, that in case it ever happens again. Yeah.
Yeah, she actually had a plane crash in 1966, not when she was piloting, but one of her friends, and she escaped that as well.
She shouldn't really be involved in planes.
In 1967, she embarked on an attempt to become the first woman to fly from New York to Moscow, and that failed only because, having reached Copenhagen, she was denied entry to the USSR. That would be frustrating, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm just picturing an air border where she flies up. And
I think she's made various stops, including one in Scotland, and she had to make applications for the various legs. She set 5 world records during the journey, though, although it was portrayed by the American media as a failure. Bill Lear invited her in 1968. You might not know who that is, but she became the first woman to train as a pilot for one of his Lear jets. Makes that a bit more obvious. In 1970, she was named Pilot of the Year. She won the Powder Puff Derby in a Piper Comanche, which is probably quite a racist name for a plane.
Powder Puff?
But unfortunately, she died prematurely, not in a plane accident, but from cancer in 1990 at the age of 58.
Yeah, she should have died in a plane crash.
She squeezed a lot into 58 years.
She did, yeah. Well done, her.
Lieutenant Jose Tyler, played by Peter Duria. He had appeared in 2 westerns alongside his father Dan. 1964's Taggart.
Dan Duria?
Yes.
Okay.
And The Bounty Killer in 1965. His career was much less memorable than his dad, who was actually quite a successful actor, but he did go on to own a video production company and died in 2013 at the age of 73. John Hoyt, might be more familiar with him. He played Dr. Boyce.
John Voight? Angelina Jolie's dad?
Hoyt.
Okay.
Pike's bartender and friend. He was already quite a recognisable film actor at that time. He was Caius in Spartacus.
Yep.
Amongst other roles, he went on to appear in Battlestar Galactica, Planet of the Apes, and 82 episodes of Gimme a Break, where he was the grandpa, I think.
Obviously didn't get a break there.
Well,
Busy man.
Yeah, he died in 1991 at the age of 85. Yeoman Colt, who found herself in the cage with Pike and Vina in number 1. You remember her with her unusual female drives?
Yes.
She was played by Laurel Goodwin. She only had a brief television career, but included roles in the Beverly Hillbillies and Mannix, and she has a claim to fame, the last, or currently the only surviving cast member from the cage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Kirk wasn't.
He wasn't in the cage. Yeah. Of course, we've already talked about Majel Barrett, who played number 1 when she was Nurse Chapel. Back in, I think, episode 4 we first talked about her. And Sandra Lee Gimple, who was one of the Talosians. Do you remember her from The Man Trap? She was the salt vampire in its own native form.
Okay.
And neither of these really portray her own natural looks, but there you go. Meg Wiley, finally, was the keeper, the physical form of the keeper, not the voice, obviously. She appeared in shows like The Twilight Zone, Kojak and The Golden Girls, and died in 2002 at the age of 84.
She's done okay.
Yeah. The two-parter, considered together, won the Hugo Award in 1967 for Best Dramatic Presentation. And the only other bit of trivia I've got is the international titles. They're a bit of a letdown this week because almost every nation went with The Menagerie in various translations.
Japanese?
The Menagerie.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, so the only ones that are worth mentioning, the Germans went with Talos 4 Taboo, which means Talos 4 Taboo. And the Italians, L'ammutinamento, which means the mutiny, obviously referring to Spock's action, but it wasn't. Well, it kind of was a mutiny.
Yeah, he took over the ship, yeah.
Yeah, so disappointment with the Japanese translators this week. Hopefully they're back on form next week when we look at the 13th episode of Season 1, The Conscience of the King.
Yeah, they'll have to do something. Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Bound to be a good translation next week.
Yeah.
In the meantime, all of our social media, we're at Trek Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. On the website, StarTrekPodcast.com, you'll find a post up for every episode where you can add your memories of that episode or your thoughts on the podcast or anything in between. And we will see you next week, assuming we're not all dead.
Until then,
cheerio.
bye-bye.